Good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me. To start with, just a technical thing, this webinar is recorded. So, we still like to see your faces if possible, but of course we understand not everybody wants to keep their videos forever. My name is Anne Koens and I'm Impact Manager for Journalism Fund Europe for our Earth Investigations program. And actually, just today, we closed a new round for our environmental grant. The next one will be mid-January. So if anybody plans to apply but didn't have their applications ready, please make it ready for January. And never hesitate to ask questions if you have any while preparing your application. And I'm super happy to welcome today Hedo and Bruna, because I think Photo and Journalism Fund share a lot in common. We both really care very much about storytelling and human rights. And I would say justice in all possible ways, including social justice and climate justice. And both organizations already exist for a really, really long time. So, we feel like veterans in this. And I'm very much looking forward to hear what you have to say, because I think that teamwork, and especially, when you narrate with pictures, that can be even harder to edit sometimes than a text. And there are many ways how you can present visual storytelling. But, it's really exciting to learn more maybe about technical and financial and processing part of all that. Thank you so much for joining us for this webinar, everyone, and I give you the floor, guys.
Okay. We are here. Thank you so much. We are really happy to be here. As you said, I agree. We share a lot of things, and well, we are very pleased to be here today. My name is Edu Ponces. I'm a member, one of the founding members of Ruido Photo. And first of all, I want to say that my English is not good enough for this. So I want to apologize, and I want to ask you if something I say, you don't understand something I'm saying, well, just interrupt me, ask me to repeat, and I will try to do that. Okay. Luckily, I'm here with my partner, Bruna Casas, which is an excellent photojournalist from Ruido Photo 2, and she speaks English much better than me, so she will help me first. And as I said, we are both members of Ruido, which is a cooperative agency, photo agency, focused on human rights issues. In the last years, we've been working in environmental issues. We mostly do photojournalism or documentary photography, but we also do sometimes like writing stories. And there are journalists in our team, and we also do like documentary filmmaking sometimes, but always working like focusing on human rights issues and trying to do like long-term in-depth projects, really long-term projects, as you will see. Today we will, well, I want to say that Ruido Photo now, we are 5 partners in Ruido Photo, and we also have some people working with us and employees. And today we are not going to show you only work from Bruna or my work, but we are going to show a collective project made by all the members of the collective. Okay, we are going to talk today about our projects focus on an environmental and climate crisis. Specifically, we are going to talk about our latest project, which is Primary Ocean, which is, we've been working in this for the last 2 years. We started to create the project 2 years ago. And now we hope that we will be working on this at least for the next 2 years, something like that, 2-3 years. And we are talking about this project because we think it's a very good example of how we work in Ruido Photo. Because today we are, of course, we want to show you photos. We want to talk about stories and journalism. That's what we love. But I think we want to talk also about all the process we make to create the project. And because we want to talk about project design. We want to talk about, of course, fundraising, which is a very important thing for all of us journalists. I think there's a lot of journalists around here this afternoon. And we, of course, journalistic work, but also media dissemination and awareness and educational campaigns, which is something very important here. Okay. And before start showing some photos, I want to ask you all that we want this to be a conversation. We want, I think there's a lot of people now here, but we want to answer questions. We want to know what's interesting for you. Maybe you want to talk more about the stories we are showing, or maybe you want to talk more about how do we get to the media, or what we do with the street exhibitions. And please ask, interrupt us, please, because it's more interesting if this is a little bit of conversation. I think there's a button to raise hand here in
like
Zoom.
I think at the top or somewhere you can like ask or say I want to say something.
I think there's a place where it says reactions. Well, all of you used Zoom many times, and if you can use this, or I don't know, I think maybe you can just,
or the chat. If you cannot find it, you can chat. You can just say hi or ask a question or whatever
talk.
works better for you. Yeah,
it's okay for us if you just talk. Okay, so okay, let's start. And we are photographers, so we are going to start showing our photos. Okay. The first story we want to share with you is the first story we made in this primary ocean project. This story is called The Sinking Island. And it's a story about sea level rise, which is a huge problem all over the world with the climate change. But we tried, when we started the project, we wanted to find one specific place in the world where we can find the kind of story we want to explain. In Rido, now we are working in environmental issues. A few years ago, we worked a lot with migration stories. What we always try to find the same kind of story, which is nothing new. It's very simple. It's a little human story that can be that can explain a global phenomenon. So for us, it's very important to find this little story, particular story, and with human main characters. That's the idea, where you can explain a story in a human level, especially when you are trying to do environmental stories. Usually the thing is too big, it's too much to understand. And us in Rido, we try to find these little stories where people can be related and
engage a lot with what's going on.
The idea is to create empathy in the public. So we need some characters to create empathy with. No? In this case, this is Gardi Island, which is an island in Panama, in the Caribbean, in Panama. And well, those islands, there's a lot of islands there, are inhabited by the Kuna indigenous community. They've been living there for the last 300 years, and now the sea is rising, and soon they will have to go. They will have to move to the mainland. So this is a story of a little island with 1,000 people that soon will be climate refugees. Here, we as a photographers, we wanted to show you something that it's not easy to show, because sea level rise is not something like happens in 5 minutes. It happens in years. You cannot see that. So as you will see, we use our language. We use some resources of our language. For example, we do underwater photography, which is very good to do like visual metaphor, you know, of this process of the sinking island. No, in this case, he is a fisherman of the Kuna communities. We've been living with them for a few days and trying to explain how is the life in this community that it's going to disappear. No? Of course, we want to show you the effects of this sea level rise, but and the drone photography is another resource which is very useful for us, because in the environmental stories, sometimes you need to look everything from from above, no?
Yes, well, we were talking about this earlier. Drone images usually give you the chance to see things from like a bird view. So like zoom out and see the magnitude of what's going on, and then back to still photography with the.
And in this case, it's very important because you can understand what's going on with the island and how the fragility of this place, no? And sometimes you find things that are good for this metaphor photography. For example, this is the school of this community. It's the decoration in the school is all like being underwater, no? And when we found that, it was a photo. There was a photo there, no? And also there's something that is very important in Ruido, not only in this project, in all our projects, which is portrait. Portrait is really, really important because what we try to do, as I said before, is to create empathy with the public. And portrait is a way to individualize the people you're talking about. No, it's not only like these people, those refugees, this Bruna population. No, she's Nadine. She's a 23-year-old girl living there. She knows that, well, she's sad because what's going on, but at the same time, she wants to start a new chapter of her life. We interview her, but using specifically the portrait, it's a way to create like those main characters of our story. No? And for us, we always use portrait in our stories. And again, the drone photography, this is the place that the Panama government built for the population, the Kuna population in Gardi. It's in the mainland. They created like a new community. And if soon they will be living here in this place. No? And you can see we used the drone, but we also went there to show new houses. No? And this is the school, will be the school. And it was very important for us to show those pictures too, because I think it's interesting to, they help to feel like how it will be to move from everything you've had, those like very personal places in the island, and go here where everything is like super cold, and it will happen. No, then I think with these photos you can feel how you can imagine how it feels to be a refugee in this case. At the end, again, we did these photos with this fisherman, which is, for me, are very useful to create this atmosphere, this sensation of disappear underwater, no? Which is something really important.
And as Edu said, it is a big project. So these projects, since we're a collective and we work collectively, each photographer of the collective focuses on a specific issue, usually in a specific region of the world where that's going on. And in my case, I focused on the Mediterranean, which I'm very interested in. I was very interpelled, but well, I had the chance to do the Mediterranean, and we chose specifically the Mediterranean because it's one of the warmest, the fastest warming sea in the planet. And what we did here, it's Mediterranean is a small sea, but it's a quite big region. So we work with scientific groups and with different groups that are very studying what's going on. And we chose a story in Catalonia, one in Tunisia and one in Cyprus. And what's going on here mainly, it's that well, the Mediterranean, it's warming up, and what we wanted to explain is the effects of these rise in the temperature, how that is affecting the population here, and mainly fishermen, which are the first ones that are suffering these consequences. And I talk very fast. I'm sorry. I'll try to talk a bit slower. So in the first chapter, we did marine heat waves in Catalonia. Here, here we accompanied two different groups. It was two teams of research biologists. Ones were doing we're tracking the state of fish in the Mediterranean, and specifically in this area. So shape, size, weight, amount. One of the main issues in the Mediterranean is that the fish is decreasing. So the fish stocks, year per year, they decrease. So this is Chania Bujverk. She's a marine biologist and specialized in octopus. That's why she's wearing this yellow vest, and all of that black is ink that octopus spelled every time they're caught. And she writes their weight, their reproductive age, checks, octopus cannot be fished if they're under 2 kilos, so she checks all of that. And then the other team that we also accompanied was a team tracking marine heat waves. So marine heat waves are heat waves, but underwater. And you cannot see them, but you can see the consequences of them. So what we were documenting was the research these team of biologists were doing, which they were studying how Gorgonia and red coral were bleaching, which is an effect of marine heat waves, and how these populations were disappearing in mass. And that's what we, and also here underwater photography was a main thing, because sea rise level is hard to photograph. A heat wave, it's almost impossible. So it was very hard at the beginning when we were thinking, how are we going to do this underwater? Are we going to photograph the coral itself? Are we going to photograph the biologists? And it all came like step by step. We started and it came along. And then the next chapter we did was in Tunisia. So one of the main issues here are invasive species, and in this case the blue crab, which is the crab you can see here. And this crab is original from the Red Sea and the Atlantic, and it has arrived from the past 5 years or so, and it's due to the rising temperature. They have found like their perfect environment, and they are reproducing very fast, and they're very voracious, so they're eating a lot of fish, which is impacting a little bit on the fish stock. And yeah, that's the main issue in Tunisia. They also get caught in the nets, so they break, and it's making the livelihood of fishermen really hard. And here on the left, it's Tebet Ezzeddine, not on the right, sorry. It's Tebet Ezzeddine. He's a fisherman from Kerkena, a little island in front of Tunisia. And he kind of embodies what was going on there, because he was quite young, and he was trying to improve his relationship with sea, trying to learn new techniques that were less invasive, that could allow him to get fish, but just in the right seasons, in the right size. But at the same time, he had the blue crab that was breaking his nets and that was making his life more difficult. And he has a little fish in his hand, and that shows what was going on, which is in the end the decrease of fish stock here. This is the octopus Chenia was waiting and checking the lives. And this is Jamila Bensousi. So one very important step for Ruido when producing these stories and working in these stories is working with local journalists, or with more than local journalists, with people that have a great depth of the issue that's going on. Because usually, or many times, we work in environments or in places that are not ours, that we're not original from there, that we're not used to working there. So this allows us to understand what's going on and to give a very personal view. And sometimes they are journalists that are working on the matter, they are specialists on the matter, and then they become part of the team when doing the reportage. Like in Southeast Asia, we work with a great journalist, and she did the text and all that part. In this case, Jamila is a biologist, and she's a great biologist specialized in invasive species, and she was crucial in making this reportage because she knew the fishermen personally, and she allowed us to enter the boat. So without her, this reportage wouldn't have been possible.
Sorry, Bruna, I see there is a question on the chat, maybe because we still didn't move on too far. Would you mind elaborating a little bit about how to best capture a heat wave? Whether you can give any recommendations. Sara is asking, and she works for a TV broadcaster.
I would say, well, something that I gave a lot of thought to, and collectively we thought a lot about
We're
that.
still working.
I would say what has worked for us for now, or for me in this case, was documenting the effects. So, for example, red coral. It bleaches when the temperature is too high, so it dies. So our goal, or my fight during these months, was to be able to find red coral at a certain depth that I could dive and that I could photograph. Or sometimes use pictures that maybe are not direct of what's going on or what's happening, but for example, in this picture that we're not yet, well, I'm going to show you later, there's a whole boat stacked outside of the water, and it seems like they are out of use. They're going to be broken and remade into other stuff. So I would say look for metaphors that maybe give an example of what's going on. That's what I would say.
We talk every time about this, because it's the hard part as photographers, trying not only with formality but with a lot of issues. And I think mainly we have like two ideas. One is the consequences. We try to find pictures where you can see the last consequence, because this is very important for us, because if you maybe the human consequences are not the most important, but we think that if we want to like raise awareness of this issue, it's important to show the human consequences, because people react to the human consequences, and also the metaphor, something that make you feel that something's going on, that like put you in the mood. This is something very important in photography, because I think we work a lot with emotions in photography, not only with like cold information. And I think we need to create the mood of that, what's going on with the environment. I'm not sure if everything understands that, but for us it's something like in all projects we have to make people feel like something's going on, things are changing, something you can see.
Well, one of the things that helped me while photographing, that having in mind was we made, and I had a list in my mind of things that could recreate the heat. So like bubbles in the water. They were working with underwater thermometers. So like try to catch those thermometers underwater and how they were, putting them on the rocks or taking them out. All those little things that may be associated to heat and water that you could make them work. Something like that. I don't know if I helped you or answered your question.
For sure, it's not easy. And here we are showing like just the photography, but we also do like interviews, and in some cases we do like little documentary short films. And what we try is with those interviews is like to explain things that photography only you cannot explain.
Yes, that it's not obvious.
Yeah, but it's not easy. It's the hardest part of this project. And thanks for interrupting.
Yes.
We are happy to answer any question.
This is the infamous blue crab that's everywhere. And this is the picture I was talking about. It was in a port somewhere. They had ditched all these boats that they were going to rebuild at some point. And then the final chapter. So we did Catalonia, then we did Tunisia, and then finally we did Cyprus within the Mediterranean. And Cyprus was like kind of a sum up of what was going on. Cyprus is, and the area surrounding Cyprus is the warmest area in the Mediterranean, and it's affected by invasive species, by decrease in fish stock, and by marine heat waves. So, and what I wanted to show there mostly was fishermen, because Cyprus is a very touristic island. It's not something you go there, it's like a paradise. It's blue water, it's very warm, it's very sunny. But fishermen were the ones who were saying, okay, this is impossible. Like they no longer work just as fishermen. They cultivate crops, they work from tourism, and they are also fishermen. And I accompanied them for a week or so, trying to document what was going on there. And then when doing underwater photography, everything seems nice and amazing, and the colors are really good, and yes, but then you discover that your camera is not waterproof. I was using a case in this case. Well, I was using a case that there's a plastic case that it was supposed to work, and then I was photographing and stopped working at some point, and I checked and it was like a big balloon of water. So yeah, I also wanted to show that because I was not expecting it to happen, and then all of a sudden I just came out of the water with that. So yeah.
Not everything is perfect
Yes.
in Cyprus. Okay, before that, I want to stop and maybe offer a different view of the project. As you can see, we showed a couple of stories. We have more, and we are working on more stories. But I want to talk about why we do those different stories in the same issue. In what we are trying to do is we are a collective. We are like 4 photographers, and what we try is to take advantage of this condition. So when we decide to work in a project like this about climate, environmental crisis in the oceans, we are trying to show different. Actually, we talk with scientists. We make an alliance with a group of scientists, and we ask them what we have to talk about. And then we decided, in this case, to do like 5 different stories with talking about 5 different problems that the oceans are facing. And every one of the members of the Ruido are focusing on one of the stories, because for us it's important to do a lot, but also to have at the end a body of work that is more than the sum of the parts, you know. And that's something that we did in the past, and it was really good, because this body of work, it allows us at the end of the project to do a lot of things, more than like publishing our stories. You will see that. But now I want to talk about something that I'm sure it's interesting for some of you, which is when we show those projects to other journalists, usually they always ask the same question: who pays for it? You know. And we can talk a little bit about it. If you want to know more, you can ask more. But I think it's important to talk about this, where the money comes from, because this is really expensive. And all of you, I know a lot of you are freelance journalists. You know that the media, of course, we publish our stories in the media, but the media are not paid enough. They don't pay. We don't get the money from the media. We get a little part of the money from the media. We publish the stories, but we have to get money from other places. And as I said, we have, in this case, 5 different stories in different places in the world. You have to travel, you have to have people working there. And also we have more, because Ruido projects, this part, creating the stories, photo stories, the journalistic story, is just the first step. After that, we do another step, which is the awareness campaign, and another step, which is the educational campaign. And this includes, like, of course, publications in the media, but also you will see big street exhibitions, expensive street exhibitions, also workshops for young people in the high schools, many of these workshops, and this is expensive too. So our projects are really expensive. But we doing this, creating this project not only as a journalistic project, but also an awareness campaign about environmental and human rights issues, it allows us to get money from other sources, different sources than the journalistic usual sources. Of course, we try to get money from the grants, journalistic grants. And in this case, this project, we got money from the Photojournalism Center or Internews grant, for example. And we are every day we are trying to find more money from the journalistic grants, but we also get money from other sources like public institutions or foundations focus on human rights or environmental. For example, in this case, we have money from the Global Justice Department of the Barcelona City Council, and also the Catalonia government, and we are asking money from the European Union, public institutions, and also private foundations. And that is a lot of work. Actually, maybe you don't know, but we don't take photos every day. We just take photos sometimes, but our work here in Ruido, our work in the office, is a lot of fundraising, a lot. And we even have people working here just doing this for us. And but it's worth it. Because at the end, we do this, because at the end, when we are doing the stories, when we are there taking the photos, we can do exactly what we want. You know? And that's something that's important for us. And when you have to work to get the money for example, for like working only for the media, you have to adapt to them. You know, it's not our case.
Yes, this kind of funding allows us to do our own journalism and to bring journalism as far as we want, and not do like a specific I don't know, you know, media. Sometimes like, oh, I want this because it's interesting on the news outlet because that happened. No, we can give like something that's a bit timeless. You know, it doesn't have to be breaking. It doesn't have to be something that happened yesterday and has to come out tomorrow. We can have our own timings, and that's great because it allows us to have time to do in-depth stories, which I would say is what we're looking for in reading.
And well,
yeah,
we can see a little bit of those awareness campaigns.
Yes. So what we have three main things as Edu said about awareness campaigns. So it's publications in media, which it's maybe the toughest part I would say in these awareness campaigns. You know, media don't always answer, and they say like, yes, we're going to publish, and then doesn't, or well, all those kind of things. But they're really interesting because we can do big projects, but media allows us to bring a lot of stories to the public, and that's what we're very interested about. So we do these big projects that include educational workshops and all these kind of exhibitions, so we can bring photography and journalism farther, and not just in a journal or a tiny exhibition somewhere. So this is a story we did recently last week, I think, on cruise ships, effects of the cruise ships in the Mediterranean and the Arctic, and it was published in The Guardian.
Just let me interrupt you.
Yes.
I think before I forget something, maybe it's interesting for some people here. As I said, we decided to focus our work on like five issues. Specifically, one is sea level rise, which we did in Panama. The warming sea, as you can see, we decided to do it in the Mediterranean Sea. But we also we are also working on plastic waste, pollution of the seas, and also land reclamation projects. I don't know if you know of these projects where sometimes governments, sometimes big companies try to create new land on the coast, which is really destructive for the environment. And we also have like our bonus track, which is we are doing work specifically about cruise ships and the negative effects of cruise ships, human effects, but ecological effects, because we thought that they are like the perfect example of what we are doing wrong as humanity, and we are doing this in the Mediterranean Sea, but also in the Arctic. In the Arctic Ocean. Maybe we can see some of this later. Okay, sorry.
So yeah, as I was so a big part is one of the three parts is media. So publishing in media, what we've done, so people can see, can reach out. It gets to a lot of people that we wouldn't usually get in touch with. So this is a story we did in Tunisia. I didn't travel there by myself. I went with a great journalist, and he's Agus. And then he published the whole piece in his magazine, which is Think with Others. And then this is from the last year. We finished our big project. So Oceans is like the second step of these big projects that last 2 to 3 years. And last year we finished global deforestation, which was about people on the first line fighting against deforestation. And we published in this magazine, which like the translation would be like Now Sunday, which is a big magazine here in Catalonia about what they publish reportages.
Yeah, the thing is, Primary Ocean is not finished yet. So the examples we are showing you about awareness campaign and exhibitions, they are not from this project. We are going to show you exhibitions we did before, but our plan with Primary Ocean is to do something like this. That's why we are.
Yes. And then, as Edu mentioned, we do big street format exhibitions, and we design them, we build them. I've got very fit since I started in Rido, because it's big, strong metals that we set up in the middle of the street. And that usually stays there for a week or a weekend or something like that. And they are the sum up of our projects, and they're brought in very transited streets, like usually it's a town outside of Barcelona, but it's usually in big streets where it has a lot of affluence of people. And what we want is to bring photography to those that may not go see it often, or that don't have for you to go see an exhibition, you have to enter a certain place or go somewhere or pay a ticket. In this case, it's public, it's for everyone, any background, anyone that is interested, you can go walk around, look at it, ask questions. And sometimes we are there to like inaugurate it and people can talk or ask questions, or sometimes we build it and leave it there for a few days. And what we do is when we finish a big project, like we finished last year about the forestation, or like we will finish oceans at some point. What we do is make a big street exhibition at a very like notorious place, or a place that people know a lot or that are gonna go there. In this case, we did an exhibition in Ciutadella Park, which is like downtown Barcelona, and there we invited the scientists we had worked with, advocates for climate change that were in Barcelona, but were from the communities that we had been, and we invited them to come and talk, and anyone that wanted to come and ask what were we doing and all of that. And we left that for, I think, 2 weeks, something like that.
3 weeks.
3 weeks. And it's a big exhibition that sums up what we have done, what we have been doing for 2 years. And yes, there was also a video showcase.
Yeah, the idea behind this is something very particular in Ruido. The idea behind this is that we want to, it's about what public we want to reach, because we as a documentary photographers, there are some places where we can show our pictures, like galleries or some specific places where you can show your work, but the people coming to the exhibition are usually people, other photographers, people interested in documentary photography, or maybe people interested in the story you're talking about, maybe people involved in environmental
issues, or that are
organizations.
sensitized about the problem.
Our idea is not to try to find those people, but we want to show our pictures to people who's not involved in the story. Like we want to go to reach the general public, and that's something we decided at the beginning of Ruido Photo, that we are not doing photos for photographers, and we want to try to get general population. So the idea was to do that, and in our experience, doing street exhibitions in these kind of places, for example, the Parque de la Ciutadella is a place where every tourist that comes to Barcelona,
and not just tourists, like kids go there after school and run around, and there's a big community, for example, of homeless people sleeping in this specific place. There's like many different people from many different backgrounds interacting here, and they get to see these pictures, and they get to like read if they want to, or like even touch it. Like there's
yeah, and when you do street exhibitions, things happen. Sometimes bad things, because our exhibitions are usually destroyed, but not usually, but sometimes. But sometimes good things happen. No? In this case, for example, this is a place where a lot of things people use for a lot of things, and for this was a good thing.
It was a good thing. So we set this up, and then 2 days later, we came back to take a picture or something, and then she was dancing there, and she was something that she had been doing for a long time, and now she was still doing it with the exhibition still around. Or like, as I said, there was a big a lot of homeless people living in this park, and they sleep here at night. And they thanked us because it was way warmer at night than it usually is, because it's usually all open, and now it was closed with the pictures. So they really liked it that it was like that. And then the exhibitions stay there for like 2-3 weeks. People see them, walk around them, and that's what we did. And then the other part of the exhibitions are smaller, and they are interchangeable and movable. And we do these ones to be set up in schools, high schools, and libraries. So this is part of the educational awareness campaigns, and for me, one of the most like nicest aspects of this, because it's not just bringing to the public and making awareness, you're making direct awareness, because usually these exhibitions are accompanied by an educational workshop, and they're set in a high school, and then they have a talk about migration, or they have a talk about climate change, and they have someone specialized about this theme and in education, and they bring our pictures and the reportage that we've done and translate it in education, sensitizing, and yeah. For example, this was a story we did about migration that was later translated in a workshop. These workshops are also done for teachers, so it's not just children learning about stuff, but also teachers learning how to teach about these issues. And I think that's, well, it's a core idea of Bruna, to bring photography and a big journalism farther, and not just, you know, a publication or exhibition one day, but to make it something usable.
Yeah, this is very important for us because, of course, it's cool to publish your story in The Guardian. We all want that, but it's not cool to depend on the big media or even in the social media to spread, to get to the public. And this is a way we've been doing this for years. It's not easy because you have to do it again and again and again and every time, and nobody's gonna give you an award for doing this. But it's super cool because, especially for me, especially when we are doing it in high schools, because it's a moment, a very important moment of the life where you create your values and the conversations there. I had the opportunity myself to go there sometimes to talk to the kids, and the conversations there are really important. So in that moment, you feel that your work is creating an important reaction to the people, and you can feel that, you can see that, and you don't depend on if they look at the newspaper or not. No. So this is a very important part of Rido work, and people don't usually see that, but it's important. No? Actually, we have a person, she's Laia Gomez Franco, doing this, because you have to do a lot of, we do like 10 workshops every month and something like that. And there's people working in this, but sometimes we go as a photographers there.
But she is someone that is specialized in education and that knows, you know, the teenage language and how to make all of these topics interesting.
And also it's interesting because sometimes this experience, like taking the photos at this level, it makes you change the way you take photos, or maybe it changes the way you want to explain your stories, because you have to adapt to the public, and we believe in that. We believe that our work, it has to be interesting for the public, not only for the editors or for the jury of an award. And when you see these experiences, it changes the way you explain your story. Well, we have more, but you didn't interrupt. So maybe we can make a stop.
Yes, actually, there were a couple of questions, and also I had a couple of questions. So first, and more questions are coming. So let's stop or go back to the financial part briefly. So a question from Francesca was about the foundations and institution support, if you can name any, or would you say it really depends on a specific issue and then you look them up? How does it usually go? Or like how does it go as such? Like you come up with a project and then you discuss it with the team? How do you go about it?
Well, it depends. Sometimes we do assignments, you know, and we are contacted by sometimes, for example, in some NGOs, and we do like an assignment, like doing an exhibition with some photos we have for that client. And in that case, we produce something for them. But our project like this, our main projects and our funding usually comes from projects like this. Like we design a project, we have an idea, and we have to design not only the journalistic approach, but all the approach, like what we're going to do with all these materials, who we are going to talk to, where we are going to put those exhibitions. In this case, for example, in Primary Ocean, there's a big United Nations meeting in April next year in Barcelona. So we decided to use that moment where a lot of people from the United Nations will be here to put our exhibition in the street. No, then we thought about it before doing the project, but we designed all the project. We have to write the project in the terms the different sources of our funding, they want the project. That's not easy. You have to translate your project to their languages. And then we do that, and then we start the fundraising process. We start to ask the money. Of course, we know what kind of projects are able to be funded, but usually we go to institutions that fund our kind. That's what we did all over the years, to find people, to find institutions that are good for us. And of course, we never had experience that one of of those institutions call us to say, you have to change something. They don't change anything. Maybe they don't give us the money. But when we get the money, which is not easy, then we have to do exactly what we decided to do. That's I don't know if I'm answering the complete question, but that's the idea. And of course, if we are doing something about environment or migration, for example, there are some places where we can get the money specifically interested in this. And when we are doing like climate crisis, we are going to other places. But and it's the same with the grants. I think a lot of people here have this experience, even with the awards. When we go to the awards, mostly what we're trying to do is funding our projects. Of course, we like that. Yeah, we want to work. Cool, but it's a way to get money now, for our projects, and we do like this strategy, like funding strategy, at the beginning of the project, and then we decide, okay, let's go there. Let's try. And sometimes it doesn't work, but sometimes it works.
And I would say, like, look also for who you are applying with. I would say, like, we have a big project, we have this idea of the project, but we also adapt it to each funder, because we know, I don't know, this maybe be interested more in the social aspect or in the journalistic aspect. So I would say, when asking for funding or when presenting a project, try to invest, like, be sure of what they might be interested in, let's say, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, some more interested in social justice, some more in climate change. So make the proposal interesting more in that aspect, or the ones that they might be interested in.
Yes, and if I may add to that, so Francesca, for one, Journalism Fund has a very large environmental journalism grant program, and photojournalists are also really welcome to apply. I mean, the only perhaps important criteria being that you need a publication in the media or a book. So it's not usually just an exhibition. And then I also want to reiterate what Edo, I think, said earlier about city councils, because I think a lot of times that opportunity is overlooked. Well, actually, sometimes, these kind of social departments or cultural departments are obliged to create something, and they often struggle to fill it in. So maybe you could talk to them and help them actually show something good. So that is a win-win situation, and generally look for a win-win situation where you think it works. And last but not least, you can always just think of keywords for your project, add foundation, country, and Google, so then, or ask ChatGPT. I don't know. Nowadays, it's supposed to Google for you. My question was about workshops. Do you, but still linked to a financial part, do you usually get paid for that? Is it always, on a free basis because it's educational work and you see it as an important part of spreading this information? How do you plan that, again, especially if you have somebody dedicated in the team?
I think this is a very interesting question, because this is in the core of our strategy. We are not doing journalistic projects. We are doing educational projects. But for doing the educational part of our project, we have to go there and do our own stories. That's the main idea. And we are doing awareness campaigns about human rights, or about the environment. But to create the content of this campaign, we have to go there and do the stories. That's the idea. And then when we say in our campaigns, going to the media, it's just one of the many ways we try to reach people. Media is not different than the exhibitions or the workshops. And when we try to get money, we get money for these educational campaigns. So yes, we're being paid for the workshops, but not the high school is not paying us, but like let me put it this way, like the city council is paying us to doing these workshops with the kids because they want to raise awareness on human rights, on environmental issues, and they give us enough money to do that. So the idea is like the whole project, this educational part is very important to get the money at the end.
Can I interrupt? When we ask for the funding, we have to explain what it's going to be spent on. So it's not that high schools are going to pay you or the city council is going to pay for that, but in the grant you specify how much you're going to spend on each chapter, and then we decide we're going to spend the X amount of money on educational, and we're going to be able to do, I don't know, 5 high schools, and then we contact the high school. We're like, hi, we have this. Would you be interested in this? So
that's it. Yeah. At the beginning, it was really hard because when you try to explain to those kind of funding officers that you need to do journalism to do that, they're like, journalists, we don't pay for it. But it was not easy. But now we've been here like almost 20 years. So we created like a network, a good relationship with those organizations, public or private organizations that are funding us, and they understand, they trust us, and they understand what we are doing, and they think it's interesting. And now we can do this way. But it's not easy at all.
We do with the small exhibitions. There's a format that public libraries do not commission. Like they ask what type of exhibitions they have, and then they try to make. And they do commission and pay for them. So with the small format exhibition, it works a bit different. Libraries, like they're a world apart, so they can do a little bit what they want. But yeah.
And we also do books, but it's not a good way to get money.
Yes.
We do books for other reasons, but.
And thank you very much. And Louise's question was, at what point do we get involved in this story? Like, for example, this story with the Guardian, maybe. Was it concept drafting, or after some journalist reaches out to you, do you come to the editors more often when you already have a project developing, and then they maybe assign a journalist to write about it?
Well, okay, they are different, and I'm not sure if I understand the first part of the question, but
I think you could just look at in the chat. Maybe that's easier. So
okay.
At what point do you get involved in the story? At concept drafting, after journalists develop a draft storyline, and what's ideal for you? That's also an interesting question.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure what Luisa means about getting involved with the story, but when we decided to focus on this issue, the first thing we do is like to try to find stories about it. Sometimes we work in things that we've been following stories for a long time, and then waiting the right moment to be, okay, we are going to do a story about it. And I think there's every time we create a project, we have like this experience that we are researching and we find something like, wow, this is amazing. This is very powerful. There's something important is going on here, but also there's a good story to tell here. And if in my case, for example, it happened with Gardi Subdu, with this island in Panama, where I was living. I'm from Barcelona, but I was living in Central America for many years in El Salvador. And well, when I see some things happening in Central America, it's more personal for me. So I was chasing this story for a long time. And that was something that I was involved before, like even before creating the project, you know? And we never do a story because we know a photo editor in some media that would like to publish that. It's not the case.
And we look for stories that are interesting to the public and that have some engagement sometimes. But when getting involved with from the beginning, so since we work in a cooperative, we like someone has maybe an idea, no, like I think we should go that way, and then we all meet and decide, okay, we're maybe going to do, I don't know, migrations, and then we do research for a while and see what stories may work, what may not, what's going on. So I would say the involvement, it's from like the beginning, and then as you go, you get more involved in or you get to know more about certain parts. But yeah, the goal is not to publish it in somewhere, but to make a big reportage. I don't know if I've answered the question.
So, sorry, there was a question before. I think we didn't answer that. Like which institute? Yeah, but which particular institutions? We work a lot with like government here in Catalonia and also in the city of Barcelona. But we also asked money for like the Spanish Agency for Cooperation, AECID. We also got money from the European Union sometimes, and we have some private institutions. We got money in a few years ago to Open Society foundations from Open Society. Of course, we got some grants, for example, National Society, National Geographic Society, sorry. Well, I'm not sure I can tell you all of them, but if you go to our website, you can see a lot of the names. It's not a secret at all. And okay, maybe there's one more question.
That's a compliment.
This was more welcome. But well, it's from June. Hello, June. June. This is about the story we made in the last project about primary forest, not primary ocean. But it's interesting for me because it's with that story, we made a story about deforestation created in the east of the island of Borneo in Indonesia. There's like one of the biggest coal mines in the world, destroying completely that part of the island. And I tried to do a story with some brilliant colleagues about one community, the Dayak Basak indigenous community, fighting in front of this destruction. But in this case, I think it's interesting, but because something happened with this. We published the story in Mongabay, but then the main character of our story, Pak Benang, he died. He died natural causes. And then in that moment, we made a thread on Twitter talking about him because he was an amazing person. He was fighting against a big company, was brave, and he was so nice. And I made like a thread in Twitter, and it was crazy because it went viral, and the reach of that thread and that tweet, it was much more important than any story we publish in the media. So sometimes social media, it's amazing for us. No? Sometimes social media is the worst, but sometimes for us, it doesn't matter which way we want to reach the public. No? And it was an amazing experience.
Actually, that reminds me of another question I wanted to ask when you were speaking about working with younger audiences. Do you make any special effort to connect with them through social media as well? Would you use more, I don't know, sometimes TikTok or Instagram, or how do you build your relationship with them, maybe using social media, if you do?
We are not doing enough. Well,
in the picture you can see here, like I think it's very different ages. Like Laia, that's the one in charge of education, does an amazing job on doing that. And I think she likes to, well, she doesn't use social media a lot when doing workshops herself. But in this case, for example, she used an Instagram post, and she printed this picture, and it seemed like it was an Instagram post. And then she made the teenagers in that class put a text of how would they caption this and what would they think it should be important to put as hashtags below. So I'm not sure it's about like social media itself, but she uses it as a tool or as a language to approach teenagers, I would say.
But no, in this case, with social media, with our social media, of course, we are using social media. We try to work to use them to get to the public also. But well, I think we can do more, but we are not. Well, it's something that I think there's more ways to get to them, but I don't know, maybe someone here can help us.
I see.
Daniel, my colleague, wants to.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I wanted to ask you because I was talking with Anna before, and we were saying that it's not that usual, unfortunately, that photographers, photojournalists applied, for example, for investigative grants. So, and your case is an exception, or is one of those cases that of photographers that apply for grants that are not only for photographers, but for doing research and for doing some things that some people think that are only for journalists, and that then the journalist will hire a photographer to go with them, and the photo will just illustrate a story, a written story. So how did you come up to the what's your experience doing that? What's your opinion? And why do you think that happens, that normally photographers don't apply for investigative grants?
It's completely true. I think it's part of the culture of the journalists all over the world. It's the same with the media. You don't see the director of a newspaper. They are not photographers. They are journalists that used to write. I think we learned because we started to work in a moment where media were not the answer for us as a photographers. We wanted to do different kind of photography. And also we understand that our work is an intellectual work. Even we work with images, but you need to investigate before, if you want to create photography that explains what's going on. No? We believe that. And we had to learn the language of the journalist or of the grants. And it took us a lot of time because at the beginning it was a disaster. For years, we didn't get them on. But now it's true. Sometimes we create the projects. Sometimes we do the research. When I say we, the photographers do the research, and then we talk to a journalist to help us with the text. No, and I think it's not common, sadly.
Yes.
But for us, it's logical because you need to do this work. You need to know the words. You need to know how to explain your story. You need to investigate it, to be an expert of what you are working.
That's what I was going to say. One of the things I'd really like is that once we do this big project, like 2 or 3 years, you become an expert of that thing, right? And I think that's, as usually journalists, we're not experts on anything. We know how to explain things. But what I think is interesting about this 2 or 3 year project is that we get to really know in depth what's going on in the area we are researching in. And I think that's really interesting.
This is part of the plan, for sure, being experts, because now, in this moment, I think it's not... a lot of people is doing local journalism, and I think this is a good idea, because you have to work in the place you know. And in Read a Photo, we don't do that. We do global journalism, but we try to do it as an expert. Maybe we don't know the place, but we know the story, we know the issue we are working with. And we work hard to be experts, because that allows us to do a different level of story that maybe everyday photographers can.
I see a question that I really like.
Could you provide a short...
Could you provide the short list of which kind of stuff these usually bring?
It means what kind of...
Yeah, I mean gear in photography. You mean in general, what do we pack? I said I like these questions. I always think about what I'm going to bring and what I'm forgetting and all that kind of stuff.
Well, in this case, it's different because we are doing photography, we're doing ground photography, and we are also doing some interviews. So we have to...
What would you like us, you mean general packing or
Probably is asking about photography gear.
Yeah, I guess it's equipment.
Okay. For me at least, I learned the hard way, but I usually bring 2 sets of cameras. Last time I was in Cyprus, I brought a second body of camera just in case, and thankfully I did. So I would say if you have the possibility, bring, if you are a photographer using photography or cameras, bring two. Then I use 4 sets of lenses. I try to like do a balance between like weight and the amount of equipment I want to bring. So, but for me, essential are like the 3 lenses I use the most, and a charger of like nice 1 or 2 chargers for the batteries, because then they can also break if you cannot charge your batteries. Then what else I would say?
Well, we're using this like ¿cómo se llama?
Waterproof
or not so
waterproof. Not going to use anymore Casas
and the drone.
and a drone.
I think it's interesting what kind of lens we use, because it in photography that changes the way you see a place.
Leo ni siku ya kipekee katika Chama cha Mapinduzi.
I usually go with one lens, which is the 35 millimeters lens, because we don't use like long telephoto lenses, because those lenses are interesting if you're doing a different kind of photography, but we always try to make people feel like they are there, and you can do that only if you use like wide angle lenses or maybe normal lenses, but we don't use telephoto. We use the drone, which is okay.
In the lens, I usually bring, I like the 35 the most, but then I always bring a 55, which is the lens that I have. And then I do use sometimes tele. I use a 24-70 because sometimes you're in a place you cannot move, or well, it allows you to take pictures that sometimes, for example, in this last reportage in fishing boats, I really like 35 and the 50, but sometimes you're a very, very tiny space and you cannot move. So I always bring it just in case. So for me, it would be 3 lenses and a laptop.
We can talk more about this, because we are photographers. We can talk hours about equipment, but we don't want to focus only on that.
Yeah, and I would say, if I had to say something, also 3 SD cards, like always have 1 in spare at least. At least for me, I always have 2 inside of the camera and then 1 just in case. And if you can bring more, then that's even better.
I think you had a few more slides, or shall we ask for more questions?
Sure.
If anyone wants to ask anything, please.
Okay, well, we wanted to show something new, because something that is not published yet, and like exclusive material. We don't have exclusive material, but because as we said before, we are working and we wanted to finish with photos too, not talking about the money. But well, these are the 2 stories we are preparing right now, but they are not ready. But well, we have some photos here. For example, this is a story I'm doing in Southeast Asia about plastic waste in the sea, because we decided to do it in the Southeast Asia because of the data, because it's the area in the world where they have the biggest problem with the plastic waste in the ocean, in the coast. Some countries there, they produce, they throw a lot of plastic to the ocean, but they also have problem because they receive in the coasts a lot of plastic coming from other places. And we decided, it's the same with the Mediterranean or with the Panama. We choose one place, but this is a global problem. You know? And in this case, when we choose one story, the first thing is which is the community, who are the people we are going to talk about, you know? And because that's very important for us, not only the plastic. I don't take photos of the plastic, I take photos of people. You know? And in this case, I did the first chapter in Malaysia and Thailand, and I focused on people doing like recycling the plastic, because usually it's not like a public business, it's something that is done illegally. And for me, it was important to talk about these people. And well, we have some pictures here. This is not a finished work, or something, just some photos I took there. And I'm preparing another chapter of this in Indonesia, working with Midela Sani, who is a very good journalists I worked with before. Well, some pictures here. It's mostly portraits, you know, because that's the most important, the first thing we do. And this is a different story. This is in the Arctic. This is a story about cruise ships, but this is a community.
So it's part. Like we showed earlier about this reportage that we published in the Guardian, and that was the Mediterranean mainly, and this like the same reportage, but it's a next chapter, which is cruise ships and their effect on the Arctic in an indigenous community in the north in Canada, and this is by Berta Vicente, which is another photographer.
The idea is that the global warming now allows the cruise ships to go here because there's no ice anymore. But at the same time, the cruise ships coming here, they are contributing thank you, to destroy the environment. It's something like it's like an example of what we are doing as humanity. You know? But
it's a kind of a metaphor what's going on. So due to climate change, we can access more places, but this access to more places is exacerbating the climate change. So,
well, it's something. Photos are mostly about the community there and what's going on, because of course we're talking about environment, but we are talking about what's happening, what's going on socially. You know, the changes that
the social impact of the arrival of cruise ships.
And in this case, the social impact is really strong.
So an indigenous community that used to be very isolated.
Oh, like I was talking about De La Shani, and De La Shani appeared in the room. Hello, De La. Well, that's it. This is work in progress. Something we okay. There's more. Okay. If you have more questions, please. We can talk about everything. You can ask, which lens do you use? Okay.
Could I make a question?
Really nice. Yes, please.
Yes, thank you very much. It's very inspiring. I do have a question, as I'm supporting some journalists in Portugal and in the UK. We submitted a grant request to cover the situation with the industrial production of cannabis. But my question to you is more about how do you report regeneration? Good examples. Because it takes time to grow a tree and to regenerate soil, and I wonder how to convey these. How do you say? There's hope. There are solutions, and what approach would you take to these examples, to good practices in agriculture? Good practices in the ocean to save the whales. I wonder what would be the visual technicalities of this, because I see a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, it is now, but it was at the beginning of the project when we are talking, not only this project, the project before about primary forest, we talk a lot about this because we do sometimes when we do this kind of projects, we have a problem, which is we create a bad reaction. Some people react very good, and some people see our stories and say, we have to do something. Okay, but some people, it's more like, okay, everything.
We're done.
We're done.
That's bad.
It's happening a lot now, and we don't want that at all. What we want is to create a change, positive change.
Encourage, like, do things better.
Exactly. So, but then we said, okay, why don't we like do stories about good practices, you know? And when we thought about it, and it was, we said, okay, we want to talk about positive things. We want to give hope, but not this way, because we are not doing like ads, you know? Yeah, these people are doing very good. They are very handsome, and so what we are trying, I'm not sure if we are doing this. It's like, for us, the local community facing the problem, it's very important. And we want to show people that they are not perfect, but they are facing the problem, and sometimes they are doing things good. And maybe you cannot see a lot in the pictures, but in the interviews and the whole story with the text, we try to explain that those local communities, sometimes they can be a good example for us. And sometimes we work a lot with indigenous communities, for example. And it's amazing, but we did also with the primary forest project. It's amazing because the answer sometimes is do it the way they've been doing for the last 2000 years. You don't have to create something very new, high technology, not just respect the sea, just you can fish, but you can do it respectfully. You can cut the trees, but you can do it in a way that it's sustainable. No? So what we try to do is like to maybe not show positive examples or reconstruction, but try to talk about people who can be an example for the rest of the world.
And what in the same line, it was very difficult, to show this, because I was thinking, as how do I photograph, a tree that's not there yet, it's just a seed. So we went for things that they were using that were crucial for that, like shovels, like in this case, it was like hooks for fish, or like things that would give a hint of what's going on or what's going to happen or what to expect, or like we wanted to find a place where fish were living great, so maybe like a contrast of like this is what could happen if we do it nice, so maybe it's something that we don't have yet, but the possibility of what we could have, something like that.
When we choose a local community in our story, we usually choose people that are affected, but they are not directly responsible of what's going on. For example, the fishermen in the Mediterranean, they are the artisanal, what's the word?
Yeah, they're artisanal fishermen.
Yeah, so the way they are fishing, it's been sustainable for years. Okay, there are some fishermen that they are doing good, but we try to show people that they are facing the problem, but they are not creating the problem.
And they are part of the solution.
Yeah,
that's
and they are part of the solution. That's very important.
That's
Right.
Okay, there are. Oh no, aquí están.
Are there more questions? Anyone? Well, I guess not then, and then we could finish here, unless you want to say something else. I just
want to add something that this webinar, our idea was, of course, explain this project and give you an example of what we are doing, but also what we can offer to the people here as if you are doing, maybe we can assess in some way, maybe you heard something here or you saw something here that could be interesting for you, and maybe, well, we don't have a lot of time, but if you want, here you have our social media, and I'm going to write my email, professional email, and if you have a project where you think we can at least assess a little bit about what you are doing, because it's similar of what we are doing in Ruido. We are not going to do your work like preparing a grant, but maybe you can help a little bit. We will be happy to. So don't hesitate to send an email to the Ponces. Because I know some people, they have questions, but they don't want to ask questions in the middle of them. Or maybe they will think questions like the Ponces.
Thank you. That's a great offer. And I think everybody should, jump on that and take your word. And thank you so much, Eden, Bruna, for coming today and sharing so many good insights, really. And I think one important underlying thing that was kind of thread through the whole presentation was about building trust. So building trust with the community you work with, building trust with the people who are affected by the environmental issues, building trust with the institutions that you want to rely on for support to produce independent stories. And I think this is sometimes perhaps overlooked. And actually, some photojournalists do not take time to investigate or research or learn more about the communities they want to work with. So I think that's another important highlight to really get to know things that you want to show. And thanks, everybody. Thank you. Please be in touch with us, with Journalism Fund, if you have any investigative stories with, if you want to show anything with your photos. As I said, the next deadline is in January, but we have them roughly every 2-3 months. And thanks again. Happy to have hosted this webinar. Please join our webinar next week as well. Well, we share some more about environmental journalism. Bye, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
A pleasure for us.
Yes.
Bye.